Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, RFK Refugees Podcast. We are a mere 19 days away from the start of the MLS regular season. There'll be some games on Fridays, but 19 days from DC United, which is what we care about. John, how you doing, my friend? How was your weekend? I hope it was swell.
Yeah, it was great. It was less soccer. I hate international weekends. We'll talk sort of about why, I think, a little bit here. But yeah, I had less games to watch than my usual 7,000. So that was a bit of a bummer for me, but great weather. I don't know about down by you.
Yeah, I was I was supposed to referee this weekend, but unfortunately my wife suffered an ankle sprain. So pretty bad ankle sprain. She's not able to move around a whole lot. So I had to pull out of those games to take care of things around the house, walk the dog, do all the things while she studies for law school. So that was my weekend. I got to sit back. I watched a little bit of soccer, probably more soccer than I would have. I had already planned to take next weekend off. So I am planning on gorging on whatever soccer content I can have next weekend for sure. But we have, let's get into let's just jump right into it. Let's not waste any time. We're going to hit you hard with the bad news. If you love my pun alliteration, I'm not really sure what you call it. Crisis in Guadalajara, of course, referring to the U.S. Olympic coach Jason Kreis. The U.S. U23 national team failed to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics, suffering a 2-1 loss to Honduras. This is it was kind of surprising to me, I guess. Maybe it's the fact that we sort of have done this before. There were a lot of reactions. There were a lot of reactions from fans. Some were pretty nonsensical, including, "Hey, why did we have the players like Josh Sargent and Gio Reyna? Why were they in Northern Ireland?" Well, because they are senior national team players. They are much more talented players. They are a major part of the senior team going forward. They are not just prospects, and that's why they're there. But John, I have my thoughts. I have a whole article I wrote about this, which I'm not sure, is it live on the site yet? It's live.
It's been live since Monday. So many people have had an opportunity to check us out already.
Yeah, so it's live. It's up on the website. I have some thoughts on sort of the game, and I'll get into those. I probably have maybe more bigger thoughts than you do because you're of your national team. But give me some of your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this disaster, loss, disappointment, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I watched the game, and the fact that the goal that really ended up costing them was on such a ridiculous gaffe. Mm-hmm. Sort of just fits the ridiculousness of the whole scenario. So the idea, you really laid it out in the article about sort of the excuses. Well, this isn't a first choice U.S. team, so how could you possibly expect them to win? And then you look at the Honduran roster, and it's like Portland Timbers 2 players, and that's like their top end with some of their top end talent. It's disappointing for the reasons you laid out. I won't steal too many of them. I'll just say I don't care too much about the Olympics. It's dumb. They should have qualified. This is not a broader referendum on the failure of U.S. soccer to do well. It's not going to knock the sport back, months or years or decades or whatever in its ability to move forward and succeed at the national level, the top level. But it sucks. It's a bummer, and they should stop doing this. They should maybe get to the Olympics next time. That's my take.
This is okay. So if we're talking about the levels of disappointment, there is 2017 in Trinidad and Tobago, and on the other end, there's losing to Mexico in a World Cup qualifier at home to Columbus. I will put those two spectrums of disappointment. This is probably somewhere in the middle of that. It is certainly nowhere near the disappointment of missing out on the 2018 World Cup, but it's disappointing. And yes, on the global soccer stage, the Olympics is not a major tournament. It's not bigger than the U17 World Cup. It's not bigger than the U20 World Cup. There's a lot of weird things about it. But so if you're talking from an outside soccer's perspective, a casual follower perspective, if you ask them about the U.S. men's team today, they say they know probably two things. They know they missed out on the World Cup in 2018. Maybe they know, Weston McKennie's out there, and I'm talking real casual fans. Maybe they just tune in to the U.S. when they play in the World Cup.
Like, where's Landon Donovan?
Yeah, exactly. Where's Jurgen Klinsmann? Where's the German? He knows what he's doing. There, see, I snuck it in there. I'm always going to sneak that in there.
It costs you $1 every time you do it. There's a piggy bot.
Oh, there it is. In there. Oh, there it is. Yeah. But they know now that, getting back to my point, they know that the U.S. missed out on the 22 World Cup, and they now know they missed out on the Olympics. The U.S. senior team went and played against Northern Ireland. They played pretty well. They were actually playing a sort of different formation. There was a lot of exciting talent on the field. We have Yunus Munsa, who we stole from England. So there's a lot of young talent that is coming into this this team, and that was all on display. And those are the players we're going to be talking about in the future. Those are the players we're going to be talking about in the Gold Cup. Those are the players we're going to be talking about in World Cup qualifying coming up. We're not really probably going to be maybe Jackson Ewell, maybe, but sort of the rest of it is maybe they make a spot appearance, a spot sub if things go really, really bad with the national team, because right now the team is deep, and 16 of the 26 could have been eligible for this tournament, but they were with the senior team. So I think I adhere to a lot of this isn't like an indictment like it's been previously, where it was sort of an indictment of the youth talent in this country that they couldn't qualify. Now it's more of a disappointment from a outside perspective, because this is a tournament that, well, certainly not maybe big in the soccer spheres. It is big, in the United States. We all watch the Olympics. When a U.S. team does well in archery, in curling, in any sort of sport, it gets attention. You get on Good Morning America. You get that sort of thing. We see it with the women's team every year. Every time they win a gold medal, they're on Good Morning America, as hungover as they are. And I wish, and I was kind of calming down, I guess, a little bit about this. And then, and I added this late in my article. I'd already sort of written the article. I was kind of editing it. And then I saw this tweet from Paul Kennedy, which highlighted the amount of games that Mexico played. And to be fair, Mexico has won the Olympics. They won it in 2012. So you look at what the Mexican team did. They got their team together. They played in Central American games. They played against friendlies against Germany. They had camps. They had all these other things. And this is an old tweet, but it sort of underscores when 2018 hit, this Mets team's all right, let's start preparing for the Olympic qualifying. Let's start doing that. And you have to wonder, U.S. soccer had a lot of things happen in 2018. I can't believe there wasn't anybody saying, you know what? The next big thing we got to maybe focus on is maybe Olympic qualifying. Let's get back to the Olympics. Let's have this be the first shot that, hey, we're on the right path now. We're getting this back together. And I think we've gotten a little drunk, let's say, on the players. McKennie in Juventus, Pulisic in Chelsea, even though that's not going so well. Josh Sargent playing well for Werder Bremen. Serginho Dest going out to Barcelona. I think maybe we've had a lot of good things, and this calls into question a lot of things about U.S. soccer, about coaching. Jason Kreis had a bad game, is certainly in that game, had a bad tournament. And there are questions sort of what he did to sort of prepare this team, and whether he put the best roster out there and players he left off. Eric Williamson, DC Academy product, has been brought up a lot as a player who may have been able to make a difference. So it brings up a lot. It brings up a lot of questions about U.S. soccer as a whole, as to whether we're getting lucky with the talent we have coming in, or whether something's really changing. And I think maybe they've been able to sell people, hey, we're changing things up. We're going out, we're doing the recruiting. This sort of brings up those questions again. U.S. soccer can't afford another lost generation, and missing out on tournaments like this, missing out on opportunities to get players into the shop window, get players in front of European scouts. A certain Andy Nahar, which I mentioned in my article, and I'm sure there are other better examples. I should have maybe looked at the Mexican 2012 team. I'm sure there were a lot of players that got noticed. But Andy Nahar made the Honduran Olympic team, showed well. Next year he was off to Belgium. Now there was a lot in that, but I won't sit here and doubt that maybe that was a part of it. So it's disappointing on a number of levels, and it's not a disaster, but it's certainly not nothing that they didn't make this. It certainly is a missed opportunity.
Ryan in the chat says that Jason Kreis should have never been hired. What made USSF believe that a subpar MLS coach would lead the U23s to the Olympics? So I think the question buried in that is sort of, how serious does U.S. soccer take this tier, this level? Is the thought immediately like, well, we could take a guy who is somewhat known, had great success in the college ranks, hasn't really figured it out, aside from from a short stint at RSL forever ago now, feeling now like quite some time ago. Do they take it seriously enough? Did they spend the money? Did they find the right guy? And this just happened? Or do you agree that maybe this coach was a bad fit and they need to aim higher?
Yeah, I see the idea of going out and getting like an up and comer. I will say, I'm not sure, considering the level of what the Olympic team is, how you do not get your first choice of players. You may have a list of players. Oh, I want these players, and all European clubs and even MLS clubs have to say, nope, sorry. And we've seen MLS lately be very stingy, and it's affected the Olympic team. We saw Atlanta hold back Miles Robinson. So I question the attractiveness of the job. And also I put more of this, I guess, Jason Kreis should have been able to get us to qualify. I will contend that. I think yelling about him is scapegoating the federation a little bit too much on this. I think the federation needs to say, okay, we're going to hire whoever we hire. Let's make sure we have a complement of games. Let's give him a full ability to sort of assess the roster, to really build a team. And you're seeing what Mexico did, and they've now qualified for 3 straight Olympics. They've won the Olympics. They take this seriously. And I think I would put, if you want to talk about blame sharing, 10-15% of this is on Jason Kreis because he's the coach. I don't put any of this on the players out there, because that's, it comes down to who the coach is. I would say 60-70% is on the federation, as far as like how they're really giving the support that they need. And I think that's in question based on Paul Kennedy's tweet. How can a coach know how a team's going to work if he doesn't have a full complement of games to see him out there? Even if players get called back or players end up not being ready, you would like to know that, hey, at least he has an idea of what the identity of this team is. And also, you got to think too, this team seemed like it was kind of forced into a style to sort of mirror the senior team. The goal wasn't qualify, it was qualify and let's play like the senior team, which I get the sentiment of that. But this is kind of, if you're going to sort of cobble together a roster, you're not going to give that roster the time, then I'm saying, well, why not fit them into positions that are good, throw the ball out there, let them go out and be themselves. And there seemed to be a lot of overthinking, a lot of nervousness, I guess, amongst the team, and a lot of uncomfortableness of how they're playing. And that's on coaching. And it's also on the federation for not preparing. So I understand the sentiment. And I think, I am not sure where Kreis goes from here. I think he viewed this as, this is my chance to get myself back into the conversation. I had a good stint with RSL. I had a bad stint at Orlando and New York, and this was my chance. And he's lost it. I don't know where he goes from here. I think he is close to done, unless there is anything else on the horizon.
I have an idea. This is my off the wall idea to make sure that we get to the Olympics next time. No salary for the next coach, with a $20 million lump sum for qualification. It's like a genius prize, like a MacArthur Genius Grant. If you get us to the World Cup, you get $15 million. If we win, or not the World Cup, if we get to the Olympics, $15 million. If you win the Olympics, $30 million. This is the way to do it. It's clearly the motivation is not there otherwise. So we've got to figure out a way to entice some quality. But also, I was just looking at Jason Kreis's announcement from when he was hired. The U23 camp at that time included Josh Sargent, Tim Weah, Anthony Robinson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, and then Jordy Mihalovic is the one player I believe that actually was on that final roster. So, I think it's good that those players have played their way up into the next division, the next team. That's good. That tells you that they're good. It tells you that that's the quality that you're looking for. It didn't get the results you wanted. We should have been able to get through on the strength of the players we did have. We didn't. Here we are again. It's okay. We'll all get through it. I think as long as this national team, as long as the senior national team continues to play well, continues to be exciting, I think we're happy. I think we're now, if they don't qualify for the World Cup again, feel free to go as crazy as you want.
Absolutely.
Burn it down.
100%. 100%.
I wanted
let's,
before we transition to the next section, I wanted to talk about our giveaway.
you got a giveaway.
That's actually not on. Yeah, it's not on the rundown, so I wanted to talk about it, folks. I believe it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Time is a flat circle now, particularly in quarantine. But we did a Washington Spirit jersey giveaway. Well, guess what, folks? We have another giveaway. This time it is the Unite the District T-shirt from Bailiwick Clothing in DC. We're going to give one away. You're going to go same as you did last time. You're going to go to rfkrefugees.com/giveaway, and you're going to join. You're going to put your information in there. You're going to put your email in there, and then next Monday on the show next week, we're going to announce the winner. So that's all there is. You win a free shirt, any size you need. It's nice. I have now two. As I had one that I wore a hole through because I wore it too much because it was too nice, and now they gave me a second one for this giveaway. So make sure you do that if you want a free shirt. I think that they're going to work with the team to promote it again and do another one, and then potentially I think they're looking at maybe doing more shirts in the future. So show them if you don't win this. If say that you're unlucky and don't win, just go buy one. They're very cheap and they're nice. Bailiwick Clothing. They're on Instagram and they have their own website. So that's the thing. rfkrefugees.com/giveaway.
Yep. rfkrefugees.com/giveaway. And we're looking to do a lot more of those giveaways. So definitely check out the website, read the articles. We're doing a lot. So I think with that, we're going to skip a little bit back to MLS, back to talking about US soccer. There's been, and hats off to Sam Stejskal and Paul Tenario over at The Athletic and their podcast Allocation Disorder. They had an article that came out sort of looking at the valuations of players, and they also had sort of a discussion. And this is something that sort of always comes up with MLS, and it comes up from a lot of the people who bang the drum about an open system and think that there's a better way. And then they bring up the fact that they think MLS is a Ponzi scheme. It's much, much more complicated than that. And I think Sam Stejskal does a good job. I believe he's the main person who wrote the article. He does a very good job of sort of breaking down that it's a lot more complicated than that. The vast majority of sports teams in Europe do not make money. They are toys. They are toys of the rich. They are a status symbol. And I would say that is true for many, many sports franchises. There are some exceptions, some big exceptions, but when Manchester City owners do not care how much money they make, they care about the amount of trophies that they get to brag about. They get the fact that they get a cool little toy. So when you talk about MLS valuations and you talk about that, it is sort of an estimation. It's speculative. It is minorly speculative, but it is saying we are selling the Chicago Fire for $300 million because we think 30, 40, 50 years down the road, this club is going to be worth that much. And that's our estimation at this point. And they are not thinking 5-10 years. They're not thinking 2026 World Cup. They are thinking far, far into the future as far as what these valuations are. And that's where a lot of this sort of drives from. And a lot of it comes from. A lot of it also comes from land in the stadium, a lot of that revenue. And I thought it was an interesting discussion. And it's sort of it's a more nuanced discussion than this is a Ponzi scheme, which I think it comes from a lot of people. And I fight against that. I don't think it's a Ponzi scheme. I think it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, you and I disagree a little bit about this. I think we've talked about it on the show before about sort of the expansion fees, et cetera, taking out some. I don't think we'll necessarily go back on that, but I think the important thing to think about American sports is that it's a very socialized losses model for all professional sports. None of these teams lose money. If you have enough money to buy a team, you make money. The worst basketball team, the worst football team, the worst baseball team is black in their ledger every time. And if it's not because of TV deals, it's because of money that gets sent from the good teams that have extra money, that get money that gets sent from the league. MLS is the only single entity league in the United States, but there's a big guard against anyone losing money in their investment. That's how they continue to gain new investing groups. So that's the difference. I think the difference between sort of the ownership philosophy in this country and MLS would be part of that. And Man City, for instance, is They literally know they're going to light that money on fire. Roman Abramovich is not making money on his investment.
Nope.
He's not. And he doesn't care because he has more money than God, and he doesn't care. There are other team owners. That's how they're able to have their entire 28-man roster consist of international team players, like good ones. That's how they do it. So I think MLS is caught in between. It's not a prestige symbol unless you're in a major market. Even still, NWSL is becoming that in a much smaller way, but it is becoming like a cool thing to own. MLS clubs aren't really a cool things to own. Like there's no cachet in being the, I don't know, Columbus Crew owner. Outside of Columbus, no one cares.
I disagree with that. It's still owning a sports franchise. It is still owning a part of the community, and it is also this is the argument that anyone's going to make, is that you're getting. Would you not argue that owning a team like Atlanta United would be cool? Owning a piece of LAFC would be cool. I mean, these are clubs that are doing a lot. Now, granted, I don't know how cool it is to own the Colorado Rapids or FC Dallas.
This is what I'm saying. The marquee
there's
teams,
a gap,
obviously. Yes.
But, you talk about the new expansion teams that have come in. If you want to get in on a sports franchise right now, you have to fight it out for maybe one spot in the NHL. Maybe you're looking at spending a whole bunch of money that is probably already priced out. Right now, the reason is because MLS is cheap. It's cheap to get into. It's cheap to buy a team. You're getting in on something on the ground floor. You're getting on something that's growing. And I think that's on the discussion that Sam and Paul had on the show, was they are thinking far, far into the future on this. And you are seeing incremental growth in this league. Would you not deny that you're seeing incremental growth in attendances, crowds, interest?
Not in TV.
Not in TV. Okay, that's the one. And we'll get into the next part of this, which is their association wanting to be sort of more closely associated with League MX, where the TV deal, you want people to talk about who the most popular league, most watched league in America is. It's League MX. It's not the Premier League. It's not the German league. It's not any of those. It's League MX. Yep. And they are trying to be more closely associated with League MX. And that's why they have the Leagues Cup. They're selling those ideas. The new TV contract expires again in 2022, so it expires next year. So there's going to be a new TV deal. I think there is still, live sports in general is still the sort of the last reason to have cable, the last reason to have a network, the last reason to put. As long as there is live sports, there's going to be a demand for live sports. I think MLS will be fine. I don't think it'll be the major contract, but I think they will say, "Hey, we got the World Cup coming up. Maybe they extended a year or two past that World Cup. We'll see. We'll see what they do. I think if they don't get the money, it's okay. We'll take the deal, but it's only through. I think that's going to be the marketing play for the next TV contract. So the TV money's not there. You're right, but I think there is still incremental growth where you can say that the league is still growing. And I think we have to start thinking that these owners are not in this for 10 years. They're in it for the long haul. They're in it to grow.
I think that the TV deal. The TV interest matters so much more than I think MLS fans would like it to mean. I think it means new fans. You can only fit as many fans as you can inside of a stadium. You have small MLS stadiums that have small seating capacities. You have an interest in paying only a certain amount of money for those tickets. So you are putting a hard ceiling cap on your ability to earn as a franchise without TV revenue coming in big, like they are in every other country. Well, not every other country, but the leagues that are most economically profitable have insane TV deals. They're able to sell it globally. There's an interest globally in their market. So the thing that I don't think we really touched on too much here is that the Leagues Cup, a joint Liga MX MLS sort of test ride here in 2021. I believe that we're supposed to have one. Did one actually happen fully in 2019, or was 2020 supposed to be the first year? I don't recall that.
I think 2019 was the first year. They sort of was like an invitational. Next year was supposed to be actual standings, and now it's back to sort of like an invitational So
that's right. So this is the Hail Mary for them, and I think I talked about it on the podcast that this is the way you goose your relevance on the TV market by riding on a existing property that does great numbers. So it makes sense. Liga MX would like to expand beyond its current audience and thinks it can do that in the English speaking audience. There's obviously they have a couple games, a year on FS1 in English. They think this is an opportunity for them to grow their base, and I think they're right. But they're coming from a position of our existing dominance, and MLS is trying to be like, hey guys, can we hitch a ride on this train? I like your train's good. I like your train. If it works, awesome. I think there's been conversations for a long time about a joint league, which is extremely complicated based on the size of both of these leagues and the geographical span. So this is let's try this out first. Let's see if we can make new MLS fans out of Liga MX fans. Let's see if we can, ride. So Leagues Cup happens. The group stage games do fine. The championship game does great somehow. And then we see a little slight tick up in 2022 in MLS. And so a Portland Timbers versus FC Dallas game has 10,000 more viewers on the national stage. All right, good. That's great. I think that's what we want to have to happen.
And even if it doesn't, that doesn't happen. It's still the small incremental growth. That's still something. If that's getting good ratings, you still tie that into your TV package as kind of here. We're going to give you the Leagues Cup. So every year you're going to have a big rating event like the Leagues Cup. And I want to add, I do want to make a comment to sort of clarify my comment. I think from M. Rickling says, how is MLS cheap to get into if Stachel is saying the MLS valuations are higher than all European clubs, save the biggest clubs in Europe? That is expensive, not cheap. The difference is the reason I do think some European clubs are cheaper is a lot to do with, they are sometimes small clubs in small little towns and cities. There's also a lot of risk involved. You take over a club like Newcastle, you have a chance of going in there and making it big, but you also have a risk of dropping down and losing a lot of your money. So that's why you're not going to see $300 million, valuations coming in for those clubs. And I think that's something to say, yes, you're paying $250 million for an expansion fee in MLS, but you're going to be playing in MLS every single season. So that's even a safer investment than some of these other European clubs. So I think we're going to put a bow on that. We have a couple things. We got Pablo Maurer coming on the show from The Athletic, talk a little bit about his piece that he wrote on the Wild 2012 playoff game. Before we get into that, we got some preseason action. Let's start with the more exciting game, which is the Spirit preseason 2-1 loss to Sky Blue. Injuries to Bailey Feist and Ashley Sanchez. A goal for Sanchez. They played with a 3-man back line. Now we don't know the game. We can't really say much else because there's no stream. We don't have a stream of the game.
But we can say that Ashley Sanchez is okay, and we know that because Ashley Sanchez is going to be on the show this week. So if her arm was dangling off and no longer connected to her body, they would probably punt on this. So we're also going to talk to Kreis this week. This is the weird way I'm going to promo our Thursday show in the middle of our Monday show, which is the worst time to do it, but that's what's going on. So make sure you get your questions in for Kreis and for Ashley Sanchez for the Thursday show.
Yep.
But Bailey Feist is injured. We don't know this. We don't know the duration. But there were actually media in attendance for this game, so we've gotten a little bit of better. We're getting the benefit of their being there to understand a little bit more about what the tactics look like. And from what I understand, we're playing a very high line. It's giving us the ball a lot in the attacking third. It makes it extremely anxiety driven when the ball is no longer in your side.
Yeah, and we have a caller coming on the show. We have Patrick coming on the show. Patrick, man, you got like a minute before we got to keep the phone line open. So go ahead, fire away, my friend.
Okay, quick things. One, I already gave John a shout out in the chat about how good he looks in marble.
always like that. That's good.
Speaking of the marble, they gave Ben Olsen a jersey yesterday at the preseason match, and he looked, very excited to get it. Did we hear anything else about him at the game or any reactions from him checking out the new team?
I have not heard anything.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm managing the back end.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. From the perspective, I guess from him being there, I think it's great. I think it's great that they're honoring him. I think he is right now. He is collecting his check from DC, and he is enjoying life. So I think I wouldn't read, I guess, if you're trying to read anything into that, I don't think I would read anything into that.
I think he should have gotten one of these already. I think it would have been nice to have him in the initial rollout when they were giving it to the folks who were in the kickoff magazine or a kickoff sort of announcement.
He got to paint, man. He's got to paint.
He is literally advertising Instagram this week, telling people to come by his studio and buy his paintings. So if you want to go see Ben, all it will cost you is a couple $1,000s, and you can go and see Ben.
And from light Instagram stalking, it looked like he was in Florida or somewhere warm all winter. So I think he missed the video shoot chance.
Yeah. Good to see Ben. Good to see him getting the jersey. Patrick, thanks so much for calling in, bud. We're gonna go try to grab Pablo and bring him in on the show. So we're gonna open up the phone line again.
We've got to have like 9 lines because we get so many phone calls.
I know, right?
Extremely. Brian is behind the scenes plugging and unplugging a number of patch cables like we're in the 1950s.
While we wait, we will mention DC United. We got to talk about at least their preseason game. Again, no stream. We don't really have much to say. We don't even know all the goal scorers because apparently there were some trialists or academy kids that scored.
I scored a goal. You scored a goal. Jason Anderson scored a goal. I think that's
really the goal scorer was the friends we made along the way. So 5-1 victory over Loudoun United. Preseason chugging right along. Hopefully we get maybe at least a stream or something so we can actually talk a little bit about the game. I guess they've got a couple other games coming up this week. We'll see what happens. We are firing right away, and we also have our tailgate. Do not forget about that, April 17th. Join us at 6:30 p.m. We are going to be having a tailgate. We're going to be having all kinds of fun. So definitely, we got details on that. But right now, we've got Pablo Maurer on the line, I believe. Pablo, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Doing well. Pablo, thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited that this article came out, and I'm curious I think I remember someone just adding you saying, boy, it would sure be great to have an oral history on this. Was it that, or was this already cooking? Was this already in your back pocket? You said this is something you got to do before the season starts.
Yeah, actually, Paul Tenorio, a colleague of mine, he and Sam Stachko, another colleague, they do a podcast called Allocation Disorder, and somehow the Thierry Henry Roy Miller free kick came up, and Paul had said on the podcast, I got to do an oral history on that free kick. So in our staff call the next day, I said, hey, you and I should team up and just do an oral history of the entire game, because I was there and it was still one of the most bizarre experiences of my professional life. And Paul very quickly was like, well, you just do the whole thing. So that's how that came about. No, it's something, I wanted to write it for a while. It's just one of those things that's still, it's like fairly recent history, but I guess when I think of it, it's almost been a decade, but no, it's something I wanted to write for a minute for sure.
The time passage was very evident to me when I saw all the players that you were talking to. And now most of them are sort of towards the end of their careers, or they've moved on to 2 or 3 different teams. It was interesting. I felt older I was like, oh, that had to be like a couple years ago, right? And then I looked at the byline and I was like, oh man, nope. All of these things, MLS seems to move fast, and particularly these sort of these historical landmarks sort of go really fast in the rear view. And I wanted to start sort of. I imagine most of our viewers and listeners are familiar with this game. But I don't think we got the things that everyone remembers. The De Leon goal, I think that's the iconic visual memory. But what of the conversations that you had, what was the thing that sort of stuck out to you as something that you knew about Roy Miller, you knew about the goal, you knew about the snow? What were the sort of the really surprising stuff that came through in the quotes? What's something that surprised you as you were talking to these folks? I was surprised by.
I spent the entire night before, so the game that was snowed out or postponed or whatever. I spent. I'd gone there with a photo credential to shoot the game, so I spent it sort of wandering the hallways around both locker rooms, trying to kind of gather information. And it was, as I said in the piece, it was like, or as everyone said, it was like very apparent that the Red Bulls did not want to play the game. I mean, it was, I cannot stress to you enough the fact that it was like Thierry Henry was sort of leading the charge, and it was just like, I mean, you could hear his voice, was complaining to the refs, anybody would listen. And I guess what I was surprised by was, I knew that to be true, but to hear Dax, Mike Petke, Luis Robles, all these guys really almost go out of their way to say, yeah, it was ridiculous. It was pretty obvious that, the sort of elite players and decision makers of the club didn't want to play. And the standout quote to me was Petke saying that, hey, I knew we lost the game right then and there, psychologically. I guess I was just surprised at how candid a lot of the Red Bulls guys were, because it's not a pleasant thing to admit. It's an embarrassing thing to admit. It's, athletes aren't supposed to ever not want to sort of go out there and kill each other, whatever you want to say, So I was pretty surprised by that, honestly. The rest of it, it was like, would have been hard for me to be surprised by any of it. Having been there and covered it and having sort of been kind of embedded in the whole thing, but no, I was definitely surprised by how candid a lot of those guys were.
Pablo, this has always been a rivalry. Me as somebody who's followed this team for a long time. The DC New York Red Bulls rivalry has more history, more crazy moments. You look back on this game, and I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, this was the last time really that we had, sort of it was, number one, a game that matters, and number two, it was sort of the craziness of the moving the matches, the snow game. It really just kind of had it all. And this is a rivalry that is very much on life support. I mean, it matters to me. It matters to Mark Fishkin. It matters to DC and Red Bulls fans. But you talk about from a sort of a league perspective, they're busy trying to get the Red Bull and New York City FC rivalry. They've been shopping around a rival for us. I guess it's Atlanta. It may have been Philly. What do you see? Is it just a matter that the teams just haven't been good, or what do you see as sort of a way to sort of get the pageantry of this rivalry sort of back on its feet?
Yeah, I mean, the rivalry's certainly been irrelevant since NYCFC entered the league. The league itself has done nothing to sort of foster. I think I actually wrote a piece maybe last year about this, where I talked to some of the originals who are involved in it, some of the more recent players. And if you get a guy like Benny or, Bill Hamid as somebody who this rivalry is still like deeply meaningful to him, probably of anyone on the team, he does the best job of connecting with the club's history. Obviously, part of that has to do with the fact that he's been around for a decade. He came up supporting the team and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's just lost so much of its juice. So that having been said, like it's never going to reclaim any of its glory unless there's some like really memorable moments. And DC hasn't been very good, recently. The two sides haven't really played very many memorable games. I mean, the 2012 game, probably the last really significant game in the rivalry was, I want to say, in 2015 when Red Bull beat DC in the playoffs at RFK to sort of like break that curse. Since then it's been kind of largely irrelevant. The league obviously is always sort of moving on to the next sort of like sexy rivalry that it can promote. And honestly, like the NYCFC Red Bulls one makes a lot more sense, but anyone who's been around for 10, 15, 20, 25 years has a sort of special appreciation for the Atlantic Cup. I wrote in the piece that I wrote last year that the last time I saw the Atlantic Cup, which I think was in 2016, the actual trophy I'm talking about, it was in the DC locker room and it was being used to hold a door open. So that's like... So yeah, that shows you, like, even physically, that the actual trophy has sort of fallen to, I think it was also based on a week later, and there were like energy bars in it. It was like on the training table, and there were like, it was full of like, Powerade or something like that. So I don't know. I would love to see it come back, man. Even in 2012, it was like so the hatred was so deep. It was such a fun rivalry. So I definitely miss it.
I am not giving up hope. I think both teams need to have sort of a sustained amount of success. I also I think the league as a whole has kind of moved on from the trophies for rivalries thing. You're not hearing the sponsored Rocky Mountain Cup. I guess Cascadia is still a thing, but it's not as good. John, you had the next one, but you go ahead.
Yeah. We could talk through each element of this. I think there are so many interesting things. We want to make sure that people actually subscribe and read. So if you're not subscribed, go subscribe. Use promo code RFK Refugees for 0% off 12-month. I suggest you do that. But
3 days you can get a subscription for $1 a month for 6 months. There's a link in the story. So, I mean, if you can't be buying $1 a month, then I don't. I'm not going to talk to you. Whatever.
My favorite thing to do is go on Reddit whenever I post an athletic article and have someone say, can someone put the info issue there for me? I'm like, listen, I will downvote you. I will downvote you if you try to steal it. And if you say it's too expensive, that's the only thing I can physically do to you. But the thing that came through, I think a lot of the things came through, but one was, it was the practical realization of the power of Ben Olsen as like a motivational speaker. DeLeon spoke about it. The quote from Ben Olsen said that they were going to fucking eat their faces. Like I felt myself getting charged up just reading. I got secondhand buzz from reading old quotes or quotes about a thing that happened in 2012. Obviously, there are limits to how much you can juice somebody up and get performance out of them. But I feel like this was the embodiment of the argument for Ben Olsen. Like the argument for the will over the skill, the will over whatever the actual result of the game should be. I feel like everybody you talked to came away with that. They were like, we knew we were not as good. We knew that they were the big glitzy team, and we were just going to put it in their face, and it didn't matter. And it seemed like that helped a lot in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I did look. The piece was 6,200 words, I want to say, at the end of the day, which is long, but I did 17 interviews, and I want to say that everything transcribed was 35,000 words. And I mentioned that because there's so much stuff that got left on the cutting room floor. And honestly, every DC player I talked to, there were 6 of them, I mean, just really hammered home on that it was like, that was Ben's, and Ben was not far removed from his playing days back then. I remember I saw Ben that night on the field. He's walking around. I took a photo of him, and he walked up to me, and I just said, what do you think of this? And he just said, perfect. This one word, and I remember right then and there being like, holy shit, these guys really want to get out here. He was, I think at the very end, man, he kind of lost that team last year, even in the locker room, the sort of like rah-rah mentality. I mean, when you just lose game after game, there's no like like you said, that only goes so far, but he got a lot of mileage out of that, man, with a lot of teams. And if you get like the team like the 2012 one that has like a few skilled players on it, you have guys like, Ben's other specialty is taking these sort of cast-offs. In 2012, it was a guy like D-Row. In 2011 too, who just got offloaded by the Red Bulls. He's done it with other sort of MLS veterans. Boswell's another one. So if you get like a few skilled players, a few guys who have a chip on their shoulder, then you get like a few young guys who'd come up, guys like Andy Nahar, Bill Hamid that year. Pontius was, and I want to say his second or third year. It was just sort of like the perfect storm. That team was easily the most entertaining DC team I've ever covered. The only one that even comes close is, the second half of 2018, obviously, but the 2012 team was kind of something special.
Well, let's talk. Obviously, this is a new era in DC. We have the Hernan Losada era. We have a lot of other changes of the club. I guess there's a lot of, I guess I'll call it unhappiness. There's a lot of angst amongst fans of sort of wanting to know what the direction is. We've gotten maybe little snippets of things. Where do you sort of see, I mean, if you had to give sort of an overall state of the club right now entering this new era, there are mistakes that have been made. We've talked about the supporter issue. There was sort of the embarrassing story about that you broke about the having to have people in the front office stay at night and sort of watch security cameras. What do you sort of see as sort of the state of this club? Is it are things as bad as some fans want to make it, or are they right? Or is there some exaggeration that goes on? And I know that was a very broad question. I gave a broad question.
I think the team has spent more in recent years, but probably not enough. They've missed on a few signings. As far as the front office goes, there's no way around the fact that they're grossly understaffed. There's no way around something like the security thing. There's no way around them not being diverse enough. These are all things that are just true. I think fans, I think fans should push the team hard to improve in those areas. I think the fans should push the team hard to improve on the field. So I don't know. I see the club as being kind of in transition, but certainly there's so many areas they could do better at. And the thing is, you got a lot of clubs now. I for example, the stadium itself. Look, man, I get that. For example, it costs half as much to build a building in Cincinnati as it does in DC. But if I'm a DC United season ticket holder and I'm looking at that stadium that they have in Cincinnati right now, there is a huge kind of WTF element to that. The bar in MLS is being raised so rapidly at this point at every club, not just the big ones, that it'd be easy for DC to get left in the dust. So look, I think there's a lot of things they've done well. Like I said, they've spent more. I think the coaching change, I have a special place reserved somewhere in my heart for Ben Olsen, but it was a necessary thing. Even Ben said so. I can tell you the players I talked to this year absolutely love Losada, and I think there's a lot of promise there. He's a young coach with a lot to prove, clear tactics. So I think the club is headed in the right direction. I just think that people need to kind of continue to usher them in that correct direction, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I think the pressure is important for sure. The way we've sort of been looking at this year is, I think we've generally landed on Hernan is not going to have he's not going to have the financial support to change his team in the way he wants this year. He has himself in numerous media opportunities lowered expectations to the floor as much as possible, sometimes in ways that seem a little bit over the top, but I understand the impetus. But I think we basically said that his job this year is to get career average performances out of all the players that were brought in the last 2 years that over last season specifically all underperformed. And I think we sort of handicapped them at the minimum we expect is the 8th spot in the playoffs, and the maximum, I think I said in the last show, is the 7th. I think that they're good enough to get in. They're not really in a position to really be threatening anywhere higher than that. Based on who's been brought in this year, you disagree?
I expect more than that out of DC this year, honestly. Like you sort of touched on briefly, so much of this is going to be okay, if they get a much better year out of Julian Gressel, if they get a much better year, really mainly out of Edison Flores, if they get a great year out of Bill, I think they could be competitive. I don't think they're going to light the world on fire, but I'm wary of the sort of the excuse making thing that you mentioned, the sort of he didn't have time to put a stamp on the roster, that sort of bullshit. Again, this is MLS, man. There are teams that compete that spend half the money DC will this year, so I think, I don't know, I would expect more out of the team than literally making it to the play-in game or something like that, I'm sure I could potentially eat my words. I thought they might be pretty okay last year too, but they made some decent additions. I'm starting to get at least quasi excited about covering the team, which is not something that happens every year. So
right, understandable. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we are probably emotionally hedging, I think, is what we're doing there. I think, and we're still sort of curious about where the goals are going to come from. I think that's Nigel Roberto seems great, but I don't think that we've solved a slam dunk solution to the goal scoring drought. So I think that's probably a lot of it. But I think you are right.
with a player like Roberto, it's hard to know. I mean, Eric Sorgat scored like 800 goals in Estonia, and he just sort of like, look, I don't watch a lot of like Bulgarian soccer, so, I'm impressed by what I've seen. Certainly he seems like technically adept player, but it's just these European players are a total crapshoot. I mean, so are the ones that DC has gotten from Central and South America too. Some have worked out very well, others not so much. But who knows? I mean, we have no idea. Roberto could come in and score 15 goals easily in MLS. You just never honestly know with these folks, so we'll see what happens.
I think any signing's a crapshoot. I mean, there are no sure things. Everyone wanted to think that Atlanta's past couple big signings have been, they're sure bets, and now, they're not. So it's the nature of the international market in a lot of things.
But there is usually a ceiling when you spend $1.1 million. The ceiling's a little bit lower. So he could. That's the great thing about those budget signings is they can make Dave look like a genius. Like in a much better way than a $10 million signing performing well. You're like, well, yeah, that's what was supposed to happen. Good. Yeah. So maybe there's that. He could get the front office award.
Yeah. MLS
but anyway,
GMs, to be clear, I'm not just talking about Dave Casper. MLS GMs as a whole get a lot of mileage out of a few signings. They only have to like hit one a year or something like that to look like a genius, apparently. So, I don't know. Again, I'm painting in broad strokes there. I'm not just talking about DC United. But
yeah, so Pablo, thanks for joining us. I want to make sure that we plug the piece again. Make sure that you check out The Athletic. I think it's one of the featured pieces, so it should not be hard to find. And there's a lot of great anecdotes, particularly from. I thought Dax and Petke were extremely candid, and I enjoyed their quotes the most, particularly coming from the other side. And somehow, I don't understand how, and I shouldn't even probably admit this, the penalty re-kick had been edited out from my brain. I remembered everything else about it, and that is such a notable part, but it was gone.
What?
And then I was like, oh, that did happen. I forgot. I know. And somehow it was gone. I knew Bill was gone, but then the retake, it was anyway. Make sure you read it. If you're like me and somehow your brain edited up the most notable and exciting part of the game, and still you had great feelings about it, check it out. I think too the point you brought up that you talked about the team going to see the fans in the upper deck after the cancellation, then also celebrating with them after the win. I feel like that is, Jimmy's quote about it was great. That's some of the things we've talked about on the show, like that set MLS teams, but DC United specifically apart from, the Wizards or the Nationals, like that sort of attention and care, like the quotes about, man, they came up here on a weekday. They spent money to come up on this bus. Like that's hard for them. They had to call out of work. And I don't know that thought process goes on. And, somebody who makes $35 million a year playing left field for the Nationals and during a rainout, I don't know if that thought goes by.
I honestly, I was literally standing behind the bench when I want to say it was Pontius and Brandon, but I heard Pontius like turn to Brandon McDonald and say, we got to go up there. And I have a video, I actually meant to put it on YouTube and embed it in the piece. I followed them up over there, up the stairs, sort of filming it. And, I'm like I would say generally I'm a pretty cynical guy. And I found the whole thing very moving. I did. It's like, it seemed, I always, you always wonder, there's like a connection that exists between players and fans. And sometimes it's like, you can kind of tell the players are sort of faking it, or, like they're just sort of going through the motions. Other times it's really real. And that was a very real moment. That was, and it's funny, later in the piece, Joe Willis has a line where he says that he was looking up at the fans before the penalty retake. And I thought to myself, that's bullshit. Okay, well, go watch the video. There's actually a close-up of him right before Cooper hits it, and he's looking straight up at the upper deck. So it's just like, in my head, I was like, that's nuts, because it just sounded like something Joe was saying just for storytelling purposes, but you very clearly see him looking at the fans, so it's nuts. I mean, it was a very real thing. It was just a weird 2 days, man. I mean, the first night I ended up at Thomas Floyd, who used to write for Goal.com. Now he does stuff for the Washington Post. He's an entertainment reporter there. I slept on the floor of his motel room in Newark, New Jersey. It was like one of the grossest sleeping accommodations I ever had. But I mean, it was just like, when that game got canceled, everybody was scrambling, and it was just nuts, man. It was fun. Life was simpler back then.
For sure.
Fewer abilities.
So make sure you subscribe to The Athletic, read that article, subscribe to Open Wide for Sim Soccer for their once annual show to make sure you're checking that out. Again, Bob. Yeah, that's right. We get a plug in for the inactive show. I feel like that's a good thing to do for you. Pablo, thanks for joining us, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yep. Thanks, Pablo.
Bye.
All right. Oh, yeah. There's the audio coming in right from the thing. Always gotta love that hang up audio. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great piece. Subscribe to The Athletic, guys. We people who ask for those, and this is where I plug the same people who ask for those articles to be copied into their. I don't want to spend anyone's money. I don't want to talk anyone's money, but asking for those articles to be posted, and then people do that, and then companies go out of business, and then you ask why there's no coverage of soccer. Subscribe.
$6 for 6 months, which will get you through most of the season. Yeah. So do that.
It costs less than probably your cell phone bill costs right now, or maybe a little more depending on how much internet you spend.
It costs less than what we're asking you to spend on patreon.com/RFK refugees. Boom. So think about it that way.
Support good content. This is the type of stuff that comes from that, and support content like this because we need it in this league desperately. This is how the MLS ain't doing any history. They do it very sparingly. Even for their 25th year now, again, COVID hit that. I was deeply disappointed. I really thought it was going to be a renaissance of historical content. So we need more of that. We need more of that. We need more of that in this league because the MLS sure isn't.
If nothing else, there's a multi-party conversation about the Kyle Martini component of this story. There's Kyle Martino is talked to about it. Bill Hamid is talked to about it. And also there's a Leonard Pahoy reference in this article. It is a complete time machine to the year 2012. And I know I share this with a friend who is sort of getting into DC United, and they were really, really impressed at that fan story because it seems so out of the left field for sports fans that haven't followed MLS or haven't followed soccer. And that, there haven't been moments since then, really. Like that was, to me, the last moment where you felt that direct connection with the players in a way that they were like, oh yeah, this is like a family. Like these aren't just people who spent some money. Like this is much more important than that.
Yeah. It is something that is that's fading away, I think, a little bit amongst players. I don't know if, we'll see. We talk about moments in games. I think I hope maybe when fans are let back, if Felipe Martins is suspended for yellow card accumulation, he would certainly be out in the crowd. He would be doing.
That doesn't sound like something that would happen to him.
What's that?
That doesn't sound like something that would happen to him.
It'll probably happen at least once this season. But we talk about certain moments in MLS. I remember the moment when Christian Gomez was suspended. He went into the away section of the bar wearing an Argentina jersey and started banging the drums. Those are moments we need to really enjoy when they happen. Because they are something that will probably go away as more money gets into the league, as more salaries go up, bigger spenders, things like that go away. So hopefully, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like
I think you're right. And I thought of why is because back then I think Chris Pontius was making like $75,000 a year, and he was like a starter. Maybe like 150, but
he was doing fairly well for him. I mean, he was making at least 200,000 for that team.
Fine.
He was
Throw Pontius out.
Yeah.
Throw Pontius out. But I'm just saying, like the lower threshold, like there, but for the grace of God go I situation, like they could be like Joe Willis was making $65,000.
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was definitely on that league minimum. If that league minimum was 65,000.
So that you can see it's a lot easier for them to put themselves in your shoes when you guys like make the same amount of money. But I think that's probably a little bit of the explanation for why the big divide from the professional athlete to the fan. But either way, it was a great story and a great outcome.
It is. And definitely check it out. Let's drop some talks. We got the tailgate. I want to drop that again. rfkrefugees.com/tailgate. We are going to be doing a sort of lot 8 virtual, bring your beer, bring your best drink. We're going to talk DC. We're going to talk lineups. We're going to do a live show. We're TBD on maybe some guests we're going to try to get for you guys. We have obviously our pieces, recap interviews of Donovan Pines and Zoltan Stieber. Definitely check those out. Some interesting details from Zoltan and also a great interview with Donovan Pines. So definitely check that out. Listen, enjoy. We do this content for you all. Subscribe. Our interviews, of course, will come up early. When I get them and I get them edited, they go up right away on the website. So definitely be there. Subscribe at the page, patreon.com/RFreeRefugees. Check out RFreeRefugees.com for all our content, twitter.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, all the good things. I guess with that, we will see you guys on Thursday. Vamos.
Vamos.